Does having a PVL mean you're going to have cerebral palsy? Last week we covered the early signs of cerebral palsy, but I want to also go into more the definitions of cerebral palsy. When you are new to this, you're kind of being taught like your child will develop cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy has happened on the injury. It just has. I've covered the PVLs before, but when you're having a PVL, that means you now have damage to the brain. So by definition, the damage to the brain is the definition of CP. Now, they're still waiting for the combination of muscular responses, developmental responses, cognitive responses in regards to that, because we talk about the autism spectrum, but there's a CP spectrum. It can go from very mild to severe. But now what you have to add into are the birth deviations. To get the full package, and this is something that I'm putting, the stuff's out there by Movement Lesson, but putting the whole package together. So first of all, you have to look at the birth deviation process, right? And that's something that I cover, right? And now you have to look at the level of trauma that your child's going through. Is your child in the NICU? If your child's in the NICU for more than 2 days, I'm already saying that you're going to have developmental delays, if not going into global delays, depending on the level of care or what's going on in the NICU process, right? Your baby is not meant to be there, but we're meant to save your child's life. I do this all the time. The first thing I have to do with babies is really to undo a lot of the medical stuff. I had a little munchkin here. I just couldn't get to because of her movements, thank goodness, at 4, couldn't get to the cranial work that I wanted to, but this is why I train you guys. Listen, it's amazing that you're coming here for me, but especially like the cranial work, to be doing that at nighttime is gold. I mean, my kids were lab rats after 9 o'clock at night because of what I did, because I was able to do things in detail that I normally couldn't do during the day, let's say. Even my visual distractions come in the way, much less, my children moving and being distracted or otherwise. So I like that nighttime process. But when you're looking at the combination thereof, is your child in the status of micropreemie? Is their child in the status of prematurity? What kind of birth trauma happened? But at the same time, too, what I have to tell you is, if you're even having the discussions of cerebral palsy, act as if you have it. So when you're still in the NICU, we have our free program, NICU to Home, so you can start looking at that. I can't stress enough the gold that's in the breathing course. It's a free course. But if your child too has not organized its first breath really, or had trauma with the first breath from 3 months or younger, I can tell you right now, without some form of movement intervention, your child's not going to walk to the degree that you want it to. I'm not saying they're never going to walk, right? But they're not going to walk, because if you can't organize gravity in the first breath by that inhale, exhale, because it's the first time it's happening, your chances of organizing gravity in the walk are going to be complicated, right? The whole reason for the breath, yes, is to stay alive for the breath, the oxygen point, but it's also to organize gravity. It's the first time you are opposing gravity when you come out of the womb. And so, same thing with your skeletal buoyancy, right? These are things that are so important to your child. You've just had a baby. You probably just have had surgery. You're trying to maybe even stay alive for yourself, much less your child. Your hormones are being ripped in two. A NICU is a 24-hour setting. You are not thinking correctly. And on top of that, yes, you have the hopes that everything's going to be okay with your child. But here isn't about hopes. We can hope for a lot of things. We can hope that it doesn't rain tonight. But at the same time, too, there's a difference between hope and just being proactive. But I can tell you, with the certain circumstances, that cocktail is happening. And to sit there and have that false sense of security of developing cerebral palsy, I don't understand that conversational English. The cerebral palsy part has happened. What we're dealing with now is how to organize around it so it's not as severe. We can bring it down to being more mild of a case in a lot of circumstances. What do we have to do to relieve the stress that your baby is going through at the moment? And most people think it's just getting out of the hospital. you still have to work on your child's movement vocabularies, because every second that they're missing essential movements. And that's where, again, the catch-up. Oh, and the worst catch-up of all is age adjusting. Stop doing it. We can't do that. You get a bigger false sense of security. I'll age adjust for organs, not for development. Your child's born, they're born. And we need to work with them as if they are born. Thanks.